Hello, everyone. We'll just give it a couple of minutes to let everybody get up to speed and the internet connections and everything. So today we're going to be talking about how to manage improvement suggestions and ideas effectively. Just for the practical stuff, if you have any questions, please ask the questions in the comment section. You can have both one on LinkedIn if you are joining from there, and on YouTube if you're joining from there. So we'll be monitoring them and trying to ask all the questions you have. Well, let me also welcome my co-host here today, which is Louise, our customer success manager. Hey, Louise.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone.
So I'm not sure if we feel confident that everybody has been able to enter now, but I'll slowly get started and explain what you should be able to take home from this webinar today. First of all, we would like to show you a way to engage your colleagues to participate in process improvement. We'll also talk a little bit about why this is important and what you can benefit from it. Then secondly, we want to talk about how to organize ideas and suggestions in the context of your business processes and your work instructions. And this is where we will go into a demo of the new feature in Gluu. And what this should give you is really an understanding of how to manage the full idea refinement and approval process from the time when somebody submits an idea or potential idea until the time when it is implemented. Just for those of you who may not know Gluu, Gluu is a business process management platform that makes any kind of business process easier to understand, easier to execute, and easier to improve. And our focus is really on engaging business users. So today we'll really focus on the improvement part, but the improvements really driven by the employees, by the people that are working with the processes on a day-to-day basis. This is a very important source of improvement ideas, but of course they have to be managed. But Louise, I know that you have 5 years experience as quality manager in a factory of, I think, a few hundred people, and been working very much with people on the factory floor. Why are employee-driven improvements important in a company?
Well, I mean, employee driven improvements is basically the holy grail of process improvement, I would say. For Gluu, having that employee focus just fits very well with our philosophy in general. Let me just share a couple of slides with you guys that I brought. The reason why it's so important to focus on your employees also when it comes to process improvements is because you might have seen this lovely iceberg before, but it's because top management has a very small amount of the total knowledge about problems in an organization. It's not until you reach your frontline employees that you actually know everything that is going on. So it's very important to establish that feedback loop going from top management to frontline employees and back to top management to be able to make the right adjustments to your processes, but also to your overall strategy.
So, Louise, let me just ask you: do you see are the process owners then the ones who are informing top management? So they are what are their role?
The what? Sorry, Søren, I just missed a couple of words.
The process owners, the process managers.
What about them? You dropped out for me for a second, so if you could repeat the question.
I'm just asking if what is the role of the process owners in this communication stream from the employees to top management?
Well, process owners in this case, which is something Gluu does really well, their job would be to handle the improvement suggestions. It's actually no different from being a team leader or a department head in the company. They would also be today, without having a business process management tool, be handling improvement suggestions from employees. But if we move on to this slide, it also just gives a very good indication of why it is that these very small improvements from frontline employees are very important to a business. Sometimes we get pushback from customers when we tell them that, well, process improvement is very important and it's important that you do it on a daily basis. And they're like, no, we'll hire consultants. And then we'll go through our processes once a year or once every 2 or 3 years and find the most important process improvements. And that is something that you can choose to do, and that can also be a good thing. But these small daily or weekly improvements can actually move your business forward, help you develop and help you increase your profit margins without being a huge cost to your organization, because it's just embedded in your daily work. And it makes much more of a difference than you would think. So if we look a little bit at the difference also between doing the small continuous improvements, gathering that valuable information from your frontline employees, and having consultants do it for you in one big sitting, so to say. One big project. You also see exemplified here on this slide why it is that you really should be focusing on getting those small improvements into your daily work as an organization, because you will get much further doing that than by hiring consultants, and they will also cost you a pretty penny, as we all know.
But sometimes I guess what we're talking about is incremental improvements. What are the big things you probably still need some external help to solve those problems, right?
Absolutely, that can be very helpful. That's also what I tried to mention before, that it's not that consultants are not good and can't be helpful in your organization, but if you only do that, if you do not pick up those small little things on a daily basis, then you're missing out. You're not reaching, say, your full growth potential if you do not pick up that important information from your frontline employees as well. And then, yes, by all means, use consultants for the bigger tasks that you don't feel like you have the internal resources for, or for tasks where it would be helpful to have someone from the outside give their input, because they always see other things than you do when you're narrowly focused on your own business. So that can be very helpful, but in different situations. So we would just really like to encourage you to do both and not miss out on all the value that you have in information from your frontline employees.
I guess this is also very much in line with the lean philosophy of making sure you celebrate the problems you see in the front line and put them at the center of your learning, and really try to empower those people that are closest to the customers or closest to the assembly line or wherever the real value-adding work happens.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, I can see Etienne made a comment in the comment section. I don't know if you saw that, Sun, but that's also a very good point. He's saying that he thinks the situation is actually even worse in practice. Many companies don't even have the concept of process owners or process thinking, and I think that's a very good point, and I do agree with you, Etienne. Something that we try to do with the Gluu platform is to give you a tool that can work even in organizations with a very low process maturity, to help you pick up those improvement suggestions from employees without them having to be process experts, so to say. So that's a very good point.
But that also inspires me to another question. I mean, how are companies really managing this today? What is your experience just coming from a factory? How did you guys do this? How did you manage all these improvement ideas in practice?
Well, in my experience, what often happens is that management will encourage employees giving improvement suggestions. And then at least for a while, employees will be like, oh, okay, well, I think this is a good idea, and they'll write it down on a little note, and maybe there's a suggestion box, a formal suggestion box you can put that note in, or maybe you send an email to your team leader, or you write on a little yellow post-it and put it on the team lead's desk because they weren't there when you tried to talk to them in person about your suggestion. And I mean, that's a good first step, motivating your employees to actually give their input. The problem is that the process, when it's that informal and unstructured, it becomes very difficult to manage. And you risk leaving your employees with the impression that there's improvement suggestion was not taken seriously. They don't know if anybody read it or dealt with it, reflected on it, what happened to it, was it rejected, was it implemented? And then you discourage them in giving new improvement suggestions. So I think we also see that in a lot of our customers. They're struggling with finding a good way of getting that feedback loop of information going from frontline employees to top management. And it is tricky to manage. It's a problem most of us can probably recognize from organizations we've been in.
Isn't it also a problem of context? I mean, if you're standing at the assembly line and you're seeing some kind of improvement possibility or a problem, and you try to describe it and you move it away from that context, and then a few days later somebody else is going to recreate that context, how are they going to do that? I mean, how are a few lines in a suggestion box going to convey the knowledge, the information that's required to solve the issue? I mean, it sounds almost like also impossible, right?
Yeah, and it becomes, I think that's also part of the barrier for why employees won't put anything in the suggestion box, because they're like, oh, if I have to explain all of this and in writing, I have to tell them, okay, so it's I'm talking about this process or this particular machine and this task. Then they've already written half a page before they even get to their improvement suggestion. And that puts a lot of people off because it's too much work and they're unsure also how to do it. And then you have the other guys that will just put, like you said, one sentence on a piece of paper and put it in the suggestion box. They didn't put their name, and you have no idea what the improvement suggestion is for. Really, you can't identify the person to go ask them. So there's so many issues there.
What would be the requirements if you look at the business requirements for an effective program for this? So if we were going to do better as a company, disregarding any tooling at this moment, how would an ideal flow, what would it look like?
Well, you would need to have an easy way to report improvement suggestions, first of all. It needs to be easy, convenient for your frontline employees. And then you need to be able to have a discussion going on in a transparent way about this improvement suggestion, so that your employees can actually see, okay, so my suggestion is being taken seriously. Someone is looking at it. Other people are commenting, and that discussion, it helps qualify the improvement suggestion so that you can actually do a proper analysis of whether you should implement it or not. And then if you choose to approve it, that should also be very transparent, just as if you decide to reject it as a process owner. And then you go to implementation. And once again, you have to keep in mind that the person that wrote the improvement suggestion won't be able to know that you're working with it and that you're trying to implement it unless you make that part transparent as well. And then, of course, there's the whole issue of documentation. Like you said, my background is in quality, so I always have a small voice in my mind reminding me of audits and of what would the auditor ask in this situation, and do we have sufficient documentation? And maybe some of you are working with ISO standards and know that in those standards there's a clear requirement for continuous improvement. But sometimes it can be difficult to prove to an auditor what you did, because if you don't have a formalized flow around it, it's something that requires quite a bit of work for most quality departments to manage. But I think now we've talked about all the say the foundation of process improvement and what you should be aware of. Maybe it's time to take a look at our new process improvement feature set that we recently released on the Gluu platform, because it's actually trying to tackle some of these issues and to help you guys do just that, getting process improvements into your everyday work in the organizations out there.
Thank you for this clue, Louise. I'm really excited to be sharing this with everybody. So let's jump into it, and please be mindful that this is in beta. So we're still very open to suggestions, and a lot of improvements will be coming. But just before we jump into this, I just want to, for those of you who don't know Gluu, I just want to give you a very quick overview. So right now I'm signed in as, in this case, I'm an HR manager called Betty. And here is my own page where I have some information about comments and these processes and the tasks that I care about, given the processes that I own. And of course, in here we can see all our processes, our full hierarchy of processes. So what we're also talking about now is a consistent, common way of managing improvements from everywhere. But I think in light of the question earlier, I think it's important to say that we are assuming that the backbone of all this is a process hierarchy and business processes, because that is what provides us with the context that is the most critical part of sharing these improvements and talking about them. So even if you're not using Gluu or anything, if you're using some other platform, that's also okay, but you need to have the context of what you're talking about, and the business process and the work instruction provides that. So, so with this being said, let's imagine now that Betty has signed in and she has some comments up here. So there's some guy here saying that he doesn't like the swim lanes. Let's have a look at that. So she goes into a stream is a new way for us it's part of the new release where we are combining all changes and discussions and comments in one flow, so that the context again is there. But as you can see here, there is a question from Dean. He doesn't like the swim lanes being gray. And then maybe Betty needs to answer on behalf of the process owner community. We do this to make them make them consistent across the company. So maybe that's an answer here. And maybe Betty will share that so that Dean also feels heard. And maybe since he's actually suggesting an improvement, we could be turning this comment into a suggestion, a change suggestion. So just to show you how you can reject something. So now we are actually, as an editor, as an owner of this process, turning it into a suggestion. Any comment can become a suggestion, but in this case, we're going to be rejecting it because it doesn't make any sense, and now we have rejected it. But what Betty can also see here is that there's actually another comment here. Why is the HR manager introducing the new colleague and not the new hire's actual manager or team lead? Well, maybe that requires a little bit of understanding of the process. So let's take a look at the process. So here we have our flow and our process, and we can see in the process, I'm just going to go to the process page. Here we can see the flow. We can see the work instructions of how things are moving and who's doing what. And yes, we can see that right now the HR manager is the one to introduce the new employee to the workplace. And apparently this person makes a suggestion to move it to the manager. And that could actually make a lot of sense. So maybe we are collecting some of these improvements once in a while, but what we can do now is we can have a discussion about it a little bit across time and space. Maybe Elise, she submitted this idea from an app from the front line. Maybe she had a photo there as well, but she would have been in the real context of the work for submitting this. So maybe Betty now says, of course, we could be having a long discussion, but for the sake of this demo, I want to keep it very short. So Betty is just going to be very agreeable today. So she's just saying that I have been wondering the same, and see no reason why not. So that's maybe Betty's response to Elise. So she's going to get a message now that somebody is listening to you. And we are in the context of the process. And this time we are also now going to turn this one into a change suggestion. But what we're going to be doing immediately now is we could be having a discussion with many people and really thoroughly reviewing this idea. But I think we're just going to approve it. So we put the flag approval on it. And I'm not sure why we're getting this message here. But
it's just because it's in the test environment.
Okay.
So don't mind the messages.
Okay. But what I can do now is I could actually give it a formal name, so it becomes a formal change suggestion. So we'll just call this one responsibility change, so that we can search for it and we can keep track of it. So that's the name of it. And now I've actually approved this particular change here. So we're going to be going into the process. Just going to show this. I'm going to look at the process map here. So now we can assume that Betty is, maybe some time passes, but now somebody needs to update the process. So maybe we made a collection of small suggestions, and next time we go into edit mode for the process, we will see up here that suggestions are visible. And when we click it, we can see the different options that are here. In this case, we have the one from Elise that was approved, and we also have the diagram here. So what I'm going to be doing now as the editor of this process, I'm going to be moving it to actually make the change. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking the task and the activity and moving it from the HR manager to the manager, and as in doing this, I'm going to mark it as implemented. So now it's implemented, and what we'll be doing now is we will say that our change has been completed. So I click done, and then the system will be detecting a change. So what we have here now is we have a history of our change, so we can see what has changed, when was it done. And I should mention that if we had a lot of changes up to this point, they would all be summarized here. So what we're going to be doing now is to turn it into a formal version. So we'll make this a formal version by clicking yes, and now we have a version number for it, and maybe we give it a bit of a context. So we'll call it an employee suggestion, just for the sake of it. And then we will reference whichever improvements we included in this. So in this case, there was just the two here, and now I'm going to make a version. Let me just see. I do have some problems with this. Maybe I'm not.
Son, I think try switching users. Switch to Hans instead.
Okay, let's try to do that. I'm gonna sign in as a user with more privileges. And go back to see the process. So we're gonna go to our onboarding process again. Pick up where we left off. So let's have a look. Yeah, well, I guess the change is now done. But what we can see in our feed here is that we do have an update. This is our update here. So what I miss doing now is turning it into a version. So I'm just going to show that step. That was what didn't happen before. You can do that afterwards. So you can always make revisions and then turn them into formal versions. So let's give it a shot here. So this was the improvement suggestion. And what we can do now is notify the colleagues that we have on what we changed. So here we have a summary of all the changes automatically created, and we know now to communicate this to our owners and editors and the people that are working with the process. So if I now send this out, then what we will be doing now is that we have made a version. So we have our suggestion that is marked as implemented, and we see the context of this, and we have our version, and we can see the changes that are incorporated in this version here. What we can also do in here is we can take a look at, for the history and for our revision and for the auditors, we can see what did this look like before and what did it look like afterwards. So we have full history. And I should mention, you can of course do this on the work instruction level as well. So if we were in a work instruction and we found out that something is not working the right way, then we could be doing the same. So imagine now that we're in here and we are looking at how to send a welcome letter, and we make a comment or suggestion, then this here can also be turning into a change suggestion that will become a change and be part of the history of this. So So this is really about, we have had all the time in Gluu the capability to comment, but what you can do now is you can be managing all these different suggestions in the feed, so that you have an ability to really look at the different elements here. So as you can see, they are all marked up. Some things are just regular comments, some things are versions, some things are suggestions, and all of this can be filtered so that you keep track of the things that are being implemented, the things that are being rejected, and so on. And of course, what we can also be doing here is we can be saying whether we agree with it, we can be labeling them, and we can be hiding things and deleting things. So
and what I really like about this new feature in Gluu, because the comments before that was quite good, but this is really good because what you've shown us here and what you're looking at right now, all that information is readily visible to everyone involved in this process. And that means that we get that transparency of what happened to an improvement suggestion. That can be very difficult for an organization to manage. We've made it so easy. There are no yellow post-its here on desks anywhere or a suggestion box. We're linking the comments directly to the specific process or the specific work instruction in question. And it also makes it easy. It makes it easy for the employees to navigate, because they have their comment fields open when they're in the desktop version, but also when they're in our app, they have the option to comment. And as soon as someone replies to their comment, they'll get a notification being told that now something has happened to the suggestion that you sent.
Yeah, that's true. And connecting back to the experience you had, what you could do in the factory is you could be creating a label with a QR code for the process or for the work instruction. So you could put that on a machine out there, and if people are scanning it, they will see the work instruction, they will see the intention of something, and they can ask, they can make their suggestion, ask a question, take a photo, and this will go into the feed, where the process owner will then look through these different elements and turn some of them into improvement suggestions, give them the proper treatment of discussing them, maybe approving, maybe rejecting, maybe closing some of them. And then, as we were showing, they are going into this list of changes whenever somebody a modeler is in the diagram working. They will be seeing all the approved suggestions and can show what they are implementing and what they're not in the process map, but also in the work instructions. So it should be closing the loop of taking it the whole journey from the capture of the idea or the suggestion until its formalization. But of course, behind the scenes, there will be maybe a lot of discussion, maybe lean tools like A3 and all kinds of thorough analysis. So this, of course, is a very quick snapshot. I don't think anybody recommends doing changes this fast, of course. Yeah.
Well, unless it's a change to the Friday afternoon cake process, that's very easy.
Yeah, something like that.
To decide on, should we have more cake? Yes. Easy.
Yeah. That's a point.
Yeah, but most of them will take a bit more consideration. And the great thing here is that all of that discussion, reflection will become open to everyone. And everyone can give their 2 cents as long as they're part of this process, meaning that you also get more input on that improvement suggestion than you normally would if it's just a note in a suggestion box that 1 or 2 people look at and decide yes or no, should we do this?
Yeah, I think you are talking about something important here, that relating to the example that you gave earlier about the suggestion box. What we are doing here is that we are giving people the tool with the app or a terminal or somewhere to capture the ideas, the problems, the improvement suggestions in the work situation when they're looking at the instruction, where they're trying to turn that instruction into reality. And that's the right context. So when we keep it in that context in the process, as we're showing here with the feed, and then also now the treatment of the idea, it's giving a proper treatment. Everybody is getting a response. Maybe there's even a discussion, and that shows people that their ideas are being taken seriously and being answered. Of course, this is the role of the process owner and the editor team. But this means that if it's a small improvement, we can close the loop very, very quickly, because we don't have to have a meeting. So maybe we could complete more of these every day, and then we would get to this cycle of continuous improvement that we are looking for.
Yeah, and we're basically giving our customers via the platform that formal structure that's so difficult to establish in a company. So they just have to do the suggestion part now, handling the actual change suggestion, and not worrying about the structure. Son, if you have anything to add to the demo, please do. But otherwise, we have a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
So we can take a look at them. We have a comment from Glenn saying that think it would make sense to have a state called analysis to actually make an analysis if the suggestion could give the benefit that is suggested, and from there take a decision if it should be implemented.
Yeah, so what I hear is that we have open, we have approved, we have implemented. I think that's a good idea, because of course open means nobody has really picked up on it. But what if you picked it, but you're now analyzing? I see that makes a lot of sense. We'll include that in our review.
I think it's a good comment, and just to make you guys aware of the little beta flag that you see on the new feed feature, we put that on there because we do realize that this feature is not completely done yet. We've made the framework that we hope you guys will really enjoy using, and then we're very open to your feedback on the further development of this feature. For instance, the comment we just got from Glenn.
Yeah, and I can mention, now that you talk about it, I can mention that some of the things that are coming in the very near future is, first of all, more stronger filtering options, so that you can filter all this, so you can manage a large volume of improvement ideas. Hopefully there will be hundreds coming in. So you need to say, which rejections do we have in this time period? Which approvals do we have in this, depending on your need? The second thing is a more formal approval step in the versioning, where we will actually be setting up defaults for only releasing a new version when certain people have signed off on it. So this means that as a basis, it will be the process owner, but you can then also add a few more people, so that you can further formalize that you're not bringing out the new version of your work instruction or of your process before these people have been approving it. And it will be in the same simple flow that you saw where you are submitting a version. So only when these people get an email and they look at it and they click OK, will that new version replace the old. So this is coming very soon, I think, maybe next release, which is in a month or so.
Yeah, and it's really good that you mentioned that, Søren, because we have a question that's somewhere along the lines of that, Etienne asking if the process owner can forward the proposed change request to key colleagues to get additional input or feedback to validate the change request. And
Yeah,
I think, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, that's a great idea. I mean, of course, when we're talking about this group here, this would not naturally be the people that have a role in the process and the people that are editors or owners. But what you can also be doing, you can always add a person here if you want to include somebody else. Of course, if they need to have the right to watch this, to view this process, but then they will also be brought into the conversation and have a chance to have their say. So this, I guess, is more about the informal part of analyzing and treating the change suggestion, but also what I was referring to before was the more formal approval part, where you can also ensure approvals from people outside of the process owner and editor team.
Yeah, but I think what you're showing us there, try adding someone to the conversation, Kate or someone else that has access.
We can add Hans here.
Yeah.
Maybe this guy here.
Yeah, because
He's,
by doing that, a notification would be sent, as per your question, Etienne. A notification would be sent to this users about this comment with a link directly to this feed. So they would be able to see it and give their feedback as requested. So that part you can do with the feature as it is now.
Yeah.
But the formal approval process that Søren talked about will be coming in about a month or so.
Yeah. One thing that I should mention now that we have a few more minutes is that we've seen a lot of our customers using Excel to do some of these things, and we thought it was a bit of a shame because it's a lot of extra work. So what you can do now, what you're being able to do now, is to keep all this information inside of the context of the process, and categorize by person, by role, by status, by time period. Also, of course, as I was just doing, you can of course use labels, so you can also be labeling them. Which types of improvement suggestions do we have, and so on. And we will, of course, also, I think let it be possible to export this information to Excel if you do need it for other reasons at some point as well.
Søren, we have a final question that could maybe round off this session for us, from Martin, asking if is the easy done change measurable in the process, so you can check the effect that the change did to the process, reduction in time or cost, for instance. If you measure that the change does influence the performance in the wrong direction, you can directly go back to the previous version of the process then.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what we have in Gluu is we have the ability all the time to go back. So if we look at the change log, and let's say some of the analysis will have to happen on the side, but if you go ahead a little bit too fast with the change and you find out that it's not a safe state, then you can always go into to the change log to Gluu, and you can go back in time. So let's imagine now we're going to go back to last year, and we will then be able to see an older version of the process, and we will be able to revert to this date. So that is possible, both for the process flow, the overall diagram, but also for the underlying work instructions. So let me just show that quickly. If we are here in that welcome letter example, again, if we put it in edit mode, we have the log, and we can go back in time to see what it looked like a year ago or earlier. Yeah.
And Martin, just as a brief side note, you're able to integrate with a bunch of different tools in Gluu, so you don't need to do the analysis in Gluu. That can easily be done on the side with integrations, if you'd like to have that with the processes as well. I think that took us through. Oh no, wait, we have one last minute question. Let's do that, and then we'll round off the session. The question goes: have you thought about letting the user who makes the suggestion be able to label it as a suggestion? And if it is a suggestion, that they could fill out a predefined form, e.g., what are the expected benefits from your suggestion? Who would be impacted by the change? I like that. The quality manager in me really likes that question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. What we are doing is that, let's imagine now that I'm sitting somewhere and I'm going to be submitting a new suggestion. I'm just gonna write new suggestion. Then as a default, it will be a comment, but I can also turn it into a change suggestion immediately.
Yeah, so we already have that option. The user that makes this suggestion can turn it into a formal suggestion.
But that, of course, only is part of what I think we are trying to achieve is to make it as easy as possible for employees to come up with this, because I have seen other approaches where the barrier to make a suggestion is getting too big, so that people don't find time for it in their work. So what we're trying to do is to bring that barrier down, so that maybe Hans or Betsy or whoever is the process manager here, maybe they need to ask all those follow-up questions, but that would be happening, in our thinking, in the discussion, so that it's a bit of back and forth, like if we are talking to people. So I think that's what we are trying to do. So I see the point, but I think it's also about making sure that the process owner decides what is required in terms of additional information, additional documentation, and so on.
I think what Glenn is after here is probably making it so that the process owner doesn't have to ask the same questions every time. If it's the same 3 things they need to know for an improvement suggestion, well, then it might make sense to be able to have a predefined form. It's definitely worth considering. So we'll thank you for the suggestion, Jen, and we'll add it to our list of good suggestions for this feature. Hopefully, there will be many more suggestions to come. Yeah, like you just said in the comment now, Glenn, faster decisions and time to market, if you can, take away some of those steps. So I follow your line of thinking.
I also do that, and I think what we're typically doing with such things is that we're letting you decide process by process. So in some cases, maybe the barrier is super low. In other places, maybe it's high. But processes are so different. The formalities around them are so different, and of course, we should be accommodating that.
It makes good sense.
Yeah.
I think we're about ready to close out the session. The only thing left that we would like to touch upon briefly is, so how do you go about it? How do you do it? What would be Gluu's recommendation if you want to work with process improvement in Gluu in this manner? With everything, like with everything else in Gluu, we always recommend that you start with just a group of people in your company. Don't make a big thing out of it that you want to roll out to everyone at the same time. Just start with a group of people and the processes they're involved in. Introduce them to this way of working with process improvement, and also be very mindful of the maturity in that group of people in terms of this way of working with things. If they're familiar with it, you can move much faster than if they're not. And once they start giving their improvement suggestions after you encourage them to do so, it's very important that you actually take those improvement suggestions seriously, and that you take the time to, do the discussion part in Gluu as well. to give them the sense that this matters, my suggestion matters. It doesn't mean that you have to implement it, you can reject it, but just give them the feeling that you're actually looking at the suggestions that they're giving, and treating them all with interest. Once you've done that, then you've made some experiences in that process with that group of people, and then you can start scaling up to other parts of your company as well. That would definitely be our suggestion, that it's just so important that you get your employees on board for this to work well for you in your organization.
Yeah, maybe even start within the process management team, and maybe you can also use this, I guess, for emerging processes that you're developing. There is no, of course, it could also be a draft process that you're using to start off with, just to familiarize yourself with what would be your process for approving things and analyzing and so on.
Yeah.
Great.
And if you want any help setting any of this up or testing it with your employees, please feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to help.
Yeah. So maybe we should say that's it for now, and wish everybody a very nice weekend when that time comes. Thanks for your attention, and we will also be sharing this. It will be on our LinkedIn site, but also on YouTube, so you can always revisit this recording. So thanks so much, and enjoy. Have a nice weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.